We're going to start today just in a few minutes of relaxation with the attention on the breath. We started last time, and we're going to start again now. If you have a chair, you can use it here. Otherwise, not really necessary. This is just an idea to relax the front of the hips a little bit, even though the hips are in a flexed position. Okay, so take a moment. Take your shoes off if you haven't already done so. Get down on the ground, find yourself a chair without wheels. That's very, very important. And remember to work today and always at your own pace. Nobody can see you. It's a non-competitive kind of a safe environment, but part of that safety is up to you. You have to work in a way that's safe for you. That means never at the end of your range of motion, and that changes from one person to the next and one day to the next, okay? So this is a position where we just release ourselves to gravity, where, I mean, we relinquish that resistance, that reverberation that we normally have in our relationship to gravity. Gravity is pulling us down, and our musculoskeletal system is resisting that and pulling us up. Well, when we lie down like this in a fully supported way, whether your calves are supported on a chair or you're lying flat on the mat, or perhaps you might be having your feet hip width apart and one knee resting on the other. The main thing is just to let yourself feel the support of the ground below you, the supporting surface. And it's important to call it the supporting surface because a chair is a supporting surface too. And when you're sitting in a chair, it's possible to take a moment to allow yourself to feel and to connect to the support from the chair. In this case, the supporting surface is either the ground or the ground plus the chair below your calves, okay? And let the connective tissue do a little less work than usual, okay? Even though my legs are in a similar position from the point of view of the angles, are the same as what they would be if I was sitting in a chair. Just by rotating the whole thing 90 degrees and being in a completely different relationship with gravity, I allow the front of my hips to soften, my back body, which usually doesn't get a lot of attention, to feel the support of the mat, the back of my head, to feel the support of the mat and my lower spine and neck, to not have to do any work to maintain their curves. Okay, the arches, the concave spaces of the body are supported by those anchor points. Okay, we have so much to do when we meet in such a short time that unfortunately we don't spend a lot of time on the breath. But let's just take a moment here, put our hands wherever is comfortable for you, either the bottom of your rib cage or the sides of your rib cage. You might want to cross your arms to do it. Just be aware that the breath creates a movement without any effort on our part. With every inhalation and exhalation, regardless of what our relationship is to gravity. Now the spine, of course, the movements of the spine support that movement, and the movement is in many, many places. But let's focus today on the movement in the rib cage, and that's like a football-shaped movement. The ribs are not in the front of your body, the lungs are not in the front of your body. It's your whole chest cavity, front and back of your upper body, that fills up with every breath and softens. And it's easy to be aware of that when you're lying on the mat, because there's a softening and a release of your back body to the mat with every exhalation. Now, because when we assess ergonomic risk, of course, maintained static postures are the biggest risk. Well, I shouldn't say the biggest risk, but a very, very big risk. The fact that with every breath there is a micro movement, by tapping into that, perhaps paying attention and allowing that movement to be a little bit more intentional or expansive than it otherwise would, it's one way of breaking up static behavior. In other words, when all else fails, the breath itself is creating movement, reducing overall ergonomic risk, okay? So breathe deeply. Feel the expansiveness of your rib cage and the rhythm and the spine. Moving closer together with the exhalation of the breaths. Just stay that way. Allow the back body to sink a little bit more heavily into the mat. Feel everything shifting. The muscles, the connective tissue that have to work to keep your upper body erect can surrender here. Okay, gravity has taken over and you have temporarily relinquished the effort. So I dearly hope that when you're working from home, you alternate your working positions, but I strongly suspect that most of us are still working, sitting down at home most of the time. So today, we haven't done this, but today we're going to spend most of our time together standing up, okay? Just to get ourselves out of the sitting position. So slowly, and also with attention to what's going on as you transition. Just bring yourself into a standing position. If you have a chair next to you, then keep it there, okay? Okay, so what's just happened is that we have transferred the anchor points, the points of contact of our body with the supporting surface from a very big area onto a tiny little area, okay? Basically the 3 points of our feet. So it's still the same mass that's being supported. So in order to be able to get what we need, we have to anchor down a little bit deeper, okay? So allow your weight to fall way below the feet and to set up a system of rootedness as though you were a tree, okay? We're not doing tree poses, it's called mountain pose. But connect yourself very deeply because you're only connected to these 3 little points right now. And your whole body is drawing the energy back up just from that tiny little area. Okay, so this is mountain pose. Think about how stable a mountain is. That's how you want to feel here. Now, let's take a moment to rock back and forth on our feet. Okay, so that we're actually transferring the weight from the balls of the big toes. We don't want to go all the way to scrunched up toes. We just want to go to the balls of the big toes and then back to the heels without the toes lifting. It's a tiny little movement, okay? A movement where all 3 points of the feet are connected throughout. Next time you get to your heels, stay there, okay? And then lift your toes, but not the balls of your toes. Lift your toes and then place them down with the pinky hitting the ground first, okay? And then spread your toes out as wide as you can. Your toes are basically just resting here. This is really activating and energizing the feet and your legs. There's no way that your legs are not working right now, okay? You're rooting through those 3 points of the feet. The toes are just resting on the ground. Your legs are working very hard. And let's root down as we rise up. And let the arms come up overhead. Remember, we don't miss this opportunity to be aware of the movement, the gentle movement that we can bring into the shoulder joints, okay? Our shoulders are very strained from our work at the computer, especially if we're reaching forward for a mouse or not working with forearms supported. So here is a chance to just bring our shoulders through a nice range of motion with every time we bring the arms up. Now maybe your arms don't come all the way up, that's fine. There are all kinds of reasons for that. It's not just about the shoulders, it might be tight back muscles, okay? Wherever your arms come to, that's fine. As we pass through parallel to the ground, Our shoulders are neutral, and then we take them into an external rotation as the arms come up. And let's bring the breath into that, okay? So that it's a breath-driven, coordinated movement. So when we get to the full breath, our arms reach the top. And as we empty out the breath from the chest cavity, the arms reach the bottom. Okay, so it's breath-driven, breath-coordinated motion. And one more time, keep your hands up this time. Keep your hands up. If you can, interlace the fingers and flip your palms out towards the ceiling. And give yourself a stretch. Now, we talk in yoga about root to rise a lot. That means the best way to rise up is to root down a little deeper. Okay, so we don't try and lift our feet off the ground. We try and send an even deeper network of roots here to get some extra lift in the hands, in the head, and in the spine. Legs activated, the legs, if the heel and the ball of the big and pinky toe are rooting you down and the toes are just resting on the ground, your legs are activated. And we'll bring the hands down to the side, okay? And again, let's take the hands up, this time through the front, okay? And we're going to do a sideways lean to create space on one side of the spine. The spine moves in 3 different planes in 6 different directions. Sideways is one. Okay, so we've just already activated the axial plane, like the stretching and up and down plane of the spine. Now we're going to move the spine sideways, okay? On purpose. It's a little bit different from, let's say, if you lean all the time onto one arm at your desk when you're working, that's an ergonomic risk. But here we're moving the spine through it at a comfortable range of motion. We don't want to work at 100%, okay? We probably don't want to work at 90. We probably don't want to get past 80. So you can grab a wrist if you like, and as you're going to pull that arm up, kind of to the place where the opposite wall meets the ceiling, you don't want to be dumping out too much into the hip you're moving away from. You want to anchor yourself through both feet. Okay, the temptation here is just to transfer the weight to one foot. No, anchor yourself through both feet and get a nice stretch in the spine. We're not trying to lean too far here. We want to open up one side of the spine without compressing the other too much. Here, it's kind of we are actually stretching. We're using one hand to pull the other arm. It's not the compressing of the low side of the spine that's bringing one side into the stretch. Come back to center and switch hands. So reach, lengthen the side of the spine you're going to be leaning away from. Keep both feet evenly rooted into the ground and lean to the other side. Now, when we open something up, and we're aware that there's lots of room there for the breath. So the breath is on the high side of the spine, the side that we're leaning away from, the high side of the chest. Okay, and there is a connection from the foot, that of the side we're leaning away from, up that whole side, that whole outside seam of the body. Or even that you can imagine the seam of your clothes, if you have a side seam on your pants or your shirt, right up to the fingers. And we'll bring the arms down. Okay, we'll bring them up again, forward, and this time from the heels, the heels are firmly planted, bring the shins forward, bring the pelvis forward, bring the chest forward, and the momentum of the hands goes back. Okay, now we're not going to throw the head back, we're not going to drop the head back, we're just going to let the neck be its extension of the spine that it always is. A little bit of a gentle spinal extension here. Breathe into the chest, breathe into the front body. Hands down, and we'll follow that by counter pose. We will Stretch the back body. Now, if you have a chair here, feel free to use it. It's not necessary at all. Place both your feet down. The correct way to place feet, by the way, is parallel. So that means different things to different people. That might mean the insides of your feet are parallel to each other. It might mean the outsides of your feet are parallel to an outside wall. But we want the feet to be, we don't want sort of a haphazard way here. If we have some people having one hip more open than the other, so they would naturally stand with one foot turned out. Place your feet down parallel to each other and soften the knees, send your tailbone to the back, engage your belly to the lower spine, okay, and reach forward here. Reach forward. You just open the front body. This is opening the back body. Now, you don't have to use a chair. If you don't have a chair here, you do not have to use a chair. You can look forward or you can look down. Don't let your head go. By the way, you can do this against a wall too. If you have one, you can press both palms into the wall. You want to, you're basically standing more or less one full leg's length away from the wall. Okay, stretch the back body. You can send the tailbone to the back, the palms forward. Feel from the heels, it's like a back, it's not like a back bend, it's like there is connective tissue connecting the heel right through to the head, okay? And slowly soften your knees, okay, and sink into the ground. Sink your weight into the ground. Let your shins come forward. Let your shins come all the way forward, and you want to sit on an imaginary, like a high bar stool that's not directly above your heels, but a little bit behind you. Okay? You want to sit here, and again, raise your hands to wherever they come up. Release the lower spine. Always, in every pose we ever do, we want the lower spine to be easy here. Just drop into this kind of activated chair pose. Your pelvis is heavy. Let the pelvis really sink down. Feel the force of gravity on the pelvis so that there's some upward pull of energy along the spine. So you can feel that energy flying out through your fingertips. Okay, calm down. We'll do a little bit of breath-centered movement because it's just so important during the day to be able to bring the attention back to the breath. So we'll go back to what we did in the beginning. We'll raise the hands with the breath, okay? Lower the hands with the exhalation. We're going to come into chair pose by shins forward, weight transfer to the heels, seat back on the inhalation, and stand up on the inhalation. We'll do that for a few times. So the idea here is to coordinate the movement with the breath. Exhale, down. Inhale, shins forward, weight back to heels. Pelvis sinks down towards gravity. Lower spine is easy. There's an energetic pull from the tailbone to the top of your head. And exhale, come back. Inhale, the arms and the breath both reach the top at the same time. Exhale, gentle movement to the shoulder. Inhale, shins forward, weight back, pelvis down. And exhale. Stand up. Okay, take a moment, you can close your eyes. Okay, feet again are parallel. Now, the closer your feet are to each other, the more narrow center of gravity you have. Okay, so it's much easier to stand like this, and it's fine to stand like this if this is not comfortable for you. Basically, we want to stand with our feet more or less hip width apart. Okay, that's a good place to stand. Having said that, we're going to take the feet for a moment. We're going to do a wide-legged forward fold, okay? Here, when we were previously, we already did a narrow-legged forward fold. Now we're gonna do a wide-legged forward fold, okay? So take a nice wide stance. What's a wide stance? A wide stance is your heels are below your wrists. That's what we would generally call a wide stance, okay? So take a nice wide-legged stance, and then one at a time, spin your heels out a little bit so that they're wider than your toes, okay? That action actually widens the pelvis and makes more room for us to do a forward fold. Now, a forward fold is a hip hinge, whether we're standing or sitting or lying down. A forward fold is always the pelvis tipping forward at the hip joint over the thighs, okay? So keeping the lower spine easy, that's the most important thing. You can soften your knees here. There's no need to overstretch your legs. Keep your lower spine and your legs easy as you send your tailbone out behind you. Engage the belly to fill out the lower spine. Okay, your hands can be here at that hip joint. Your hands can be at the top of your thighs. It's as though you're folding over those hands. And make sure your spine is easy. Okay, come parallel to the ground with your back. Your lower spine should be easy, and then you can release the head, release the shoulders, release the upper back, release the lower back. Okay, your hands can come to the floor, or you can grab opposite elbow with opposite hand if you want to place a little more traction on your lower spine, okay? So again, knees can be soft here. Use your feet, really use your feet. Lower spine has to be easy. And let's take a nice little twist. We haven't done a twist yet. That's the third plane of movement for the spine. So we can bend one knee a little bit if we want, grab that shin or ankle or just below the knee with the opposite hand, and take the hand up behind us. Open the spine. Open the front of the shoulder, twist the spine. Okay, you can look up at your thumb, or as always in any spinal twist, your gaze can face wherever your breastbone is facing. And breathe. Always, always, always breathe. Remember, we're breathing now into the top part of the chest. Whenever we open up, that's where we send the breath. And switch sides. Bend the other knee, grab the other leg with the opposite hand, somewhere between the ankle and the knee. Never pat the knee. You never want to put sideways pressure on the knee. And raise the hand and come into a nice open twist. Okay, breathing into the high side of the body. You may not want to take your neck into it. You might want to gaze where your breastbone is facing. Okay, and then bring both fists to the ground. Okay, and heel toe your way in a little bit wider than hips. Okay, and bring those fists to the ground here. So you're kind of in a bit of a wide-legged squat right now. And let's straighten the knees. Remember, the neck is a continuation of the spine. And squat down. Straighten the knees, easy lower back. Head is heavy, head is a continuation of the spine. And squat down. Don't forget about your head. Bring both hands above the knees, fingers facing in, and press the floor away. Stand up with no back involved. Just press the floor away. Okay, so let's come down to the mat. If you need extra padding under your knees, make sure you have it. If you're using a mat, you can give the mat a fold. That's always good. You can use folded up hand towel, washcloth, blanket under your knees, whatever you need. We'll come down to all fours. Okay, now what's important when you come to all fours is a lot of the work is going to be done by your hands. They're kind of the new feet in this position. So you want to place them down in a way that they can really give you that kind of support. They're going to be the ones pressing the ground away, okay? You want them to give you the kind of support you need. Again, the middle fingers here, just like with the feet, the middle fingers should be parallel to each other, and the thumbs should be pointing into each other as much as possible so that your fingers are far apart and you're gripping the ground here. Okay, and we'll take the spine through its range of motion in the flexion and extension plane. You can soften your elbows. Nothing extreme, never working anywhere near your own limits of your range of motion. You want to work in between 80 and 90% at the most, maybe less on a given day. Never want to feel any pain or even pre-pain twitching in the shoulders. They require a lot of protection. Press the ground away to come up. As you round your back, you bring your chin to the pelvis and soften your elbows a little bit as the tailbone and the crown of your head reach up for the ceiling. With the breath, okay, as we round the spine, we exhale. As we bring the tailbone and crown of the head up, we inhale. This is a great place to practice centering the movement around the breath, bringing your attention to the breath. Something that can keep you sane, keep your levels of stress down during the working day. And one more time, back to tabletop position here. Curl your toes under so that the bottoms of your toes and the balls of your toes are on the mat. And press yourself up, okay? Press yourself back into a nice stretch here. Root down through the fingertips, through the index finger and the thumb. Your heels do not have to touch the mat. It's inconsequential, okay? Soften the knees. In fact, don't let the heels touch the mat. Use the hands more than the feet to press the pelvis up the rear wall. Okay, the hips go up the rear wall. And your back is full. The lower back and the area between the shoulder blades is filled out with every exhalation. Okay, if you're filling out the back body, it's not necessary even without the feet touching the ground. You're feeling the connection from the base of the heels right up to the pelvis and from the tailbone back to the crown of your head. Okay, it's the hands that are keeping the pelvis, the sitting bones pressing up the back wall. Okay, let's switch it to right leg and left hand are going to take all the weight, and the left foot comes up and we step it forward. Okay, step that left foot forward and come up into a forward-facing triangular shape, triangular legs pose here, okay? So, in all of these triangular shaped leg work, forward-facing poses, it's the back leg that does most of the work. So make that adjustment, okay? Your balance is going to come from the back leg. Both hips are facing forward here. And take a couple of bends of the front knee. Okay, now remember, don't leave your upper body behind. The spine is sitting in the pelvis, okay? It doesn't get left behind. It's the pelvis that moves everything forward. Next time, your knee is bent, keep it down. There should be absolutely no strain in the front knee, okay? Now maybe your stance is too short, or maybe your bend is too low. In theory, the best way to protect your knee is to have it going no further forward than your front ankle. My stance is a little bit short right now, but I'm just going to stick with it anyway, okay? As the hips are forward, let your hands float up, and with it, every vertebra of your spine lifts off the spine, the vertebra below it. Okay, you lengthen the spine, and then you can allow the chest to float up. Remember, you're balanced by the back foot. The chest floats up. Lower spine is easy. The neck is the continuation of the spine. If you want, you can take your hands here. Palms together, let them come between the shoulder blades. Let the weight of those forearms open the chest a little bit more. Okay, and then bring your hands behind you, okay? Grab opposite elbow with the opposite hand. Your hips are square. Again, we spoke about a hip hinge. Pelvis hinging over the front thigh here. Gonna come down till your back is parallel to the ground. Balance is coming from the back foot. The front foot is mostly rooted on the side of the ball of the big toe. Okay? Lower spine has to be easy. It's a half forward fold. Chest is aiming forward. And press the ball of the front big toe to come up. Bring your hands to the mat. Okay, and step it back again. Into a down dog. Now some people find down dog a very, very restful pose. I've heard people say who wouldn't love down dog. I'm assuming there are people who wouldn't love down dog, but try and make it into a restful pose for you. Okay, root, press the ground away with your hands and release the entire back body. Don't worry, the heels do not have to come to the ground. Okay, it's the hands that are doing all the work of filling out, opening the whole back body. Then we're going to press only one foot, the left foot and the right hand, opposite side that we did before, into the ground. Come up on the toes of the left foot and quickly bring your right foot to the front of the mat. And come up into a forward facing triangular position, okay? Hips are forward. Most of your balance here is coming from the back foot. Now you might find it necessary to play with the positioning of that back heel in order to keep the feet forward. If that heel is turned in too much, it's going to be hard to keep the hips forward. But if the foot is straight, it's more difficult to balance. So just spin that back heel in the right amount for you, okay? And take a couple of practice bends with the front knee. Take your spine with you. The spine doesn't get left behind when the pelvis comes forward. It's the pelvis that moves you forward and it carries the spine with it. And next time, stay down. Root through the ball of the big toe of the front foot, but it's the back foot that's really charging you up. It's almost like a plug in a socket. You're charging up through that back foot. Hands come up. Chest opens. If you want, you can clasp the hands and use the weight of the forearms as the elbows come up to open the chest a little bit more. Come on up. Bring your hands behind you. Okay, you can grasp opposite elbow with the opposite hand here. And we're going to keep both hips facing forward, rooting down through the ball of the big toe in the front foot and charging our whole body through the back foot. Soften the front knee a little bit and bring the hips forward. Pelvis tipping over the thigh. Stay at the parallel position. Make sure your lower spine is easy. Engage the belly if you need to protect the lower spine. And come forward, press the floor away with your front foot and come forward and stand up. Now just take a moment here. Take a moment in the mountain pose, place your feet parallel to each other. Let the weight, the full body weight sink just through those three teeny tiny little points. So you need some real roots here, okay, to get some support that you need through such a small area. And we'll transfer the weight onto one leg and come into a balance pose, okay? Now, there's nothing wrong with using a little prop here, okay? It's still a balance pose. So if you need a prop, and the wall's a great prop, then by all means use it, okay? There's also nothing wrong with challenging our balance pose. Instead of doing what's easy, doing something that's difficult to throw us off balance, because after all, this pose is to practice the idea of coming back into balance over and over again. Okay, so we'll transfer the weight from 2 feet in our mind's eye first onto 1. And then we will, why don't we start by raising the leg forward, just bending the knee and holding it for a minute, and then taking that leg and placing it wherever we want. Okay, now it doesn't have to be on the thigh at all. It can be at the ankle or the calf. Please never place that leg on the inside of the knee because we don't want to be putting any pressure on the knee from the inside. Okay, use your gaze. Now, we always say that tree is the ideal place to practice what's called the root to rise instinct in yoga, okay? The deeper we root down, the more we rise up. And our lift in this pose, in fact, comes from the deep rootedness. Okay, bring the knee forward, the leg down. Take a moment, okay, to feel 2 sides of your body, maybe shake out the leg that you were standing on. Back to a 2-legged mountain pose. Shift the weight in your mind's eye first, okay, onto what's going to be your new basic support, just 3 tiny little points. Okay, really deepen the root system. Bring the other leg up by bending the knee in front of you, grabbing the shin just below the knee, and then place that leg where it's going to be. Okay, now again, exhale and root down a little deeper. Okay, keep bringing the weight back to the inside of the big toe. Now, as much as the raised foot is pressing into the supporting thigh here, the supporting thigh is pressing back into that raised foot. We spoke about challenging your balance. If you would like to, that's by doing, not such more open positions. Instead of sort of bringing your center of gravity into the midline with your hands, you can, move your hands out. You can not be afraid, okay, to come out of tree pose and get yourself back into it. And when you're ready to come up, bring the knee forward and come out and take a moment to release the tension in the body to the earth below you so that you can feel a reverberating ease from the feet up through the legs, transferring the pelvis to the base of the spine, and then right up through the crown of your head. Okay, come down to the mat. We have to slowly drip our way down already. Come down to the mat here. Let's take a comfortable cross-legged sitting pose. If that sounds like a contradiction in terms to you, then grab any old prop, including your shoes, and stick them under your thighs, okay, to support your hips. Might not be so easy for everybody to sit in a pose that requires any measure of opening of the hips. That's why we love props. I love props. If I was going to use props here, they would be things like shoes and sweaters, just to make the point that you don't need fancy yoga props to feel supported. We all have lots and lots of props around our house. Right now, I don't have to have a pair of running shoes. I just have some flip-flops, so that's not going to do the trick. But allow yourself to feel supported for a moment, and then reach up and lengthen your spine. We're going to do a twist, and we never twist from a compressed spine. We want an open and easy spine. So reach up, lengthen the spine, and then twist to one side. Bring your thumb towards the tailbone. Okay, the other hand goes to the thigh. Don't twist too far. Maybe breastbone facing over the knee is enough twist for right now. If you do want to go a little bit farther, you can squeeze that backhand as though you were squeezing an orange into a squeezer with the backhand towards the pinky. to open the back shoulder and let the back shoulder, perhaps, if it's right for you right now, pull you into a deeper twist. Breathe where we create space. Breathe into the back side of your chest. And slowly, slowly unwind. Again, reach up, lengthening the spine. Sink down through the sitting bones. That's how we get the extra length. You need to be anchored at one end to feel opening throughout, okay? And then twist the other way. Thumb close to the tailbone. The back hand is for keeping the spine long. The front hand is for the twist. If you want to, invite yourself deeper into the twist by squeezing the back hand towards the pinky and opening the back shoulder. Then you can. Back side of the chest is what's open here. Send your breath there. And we want to twist without a lean here. We don't want to be leaning out to the side or to the back. Your crown of your head is in the same sort of plumb line with your tailbone as we twist. Come on back. We're going to do a final spinal twist before we just take a few moments to relax. Okay, so bring both feet to the mat, your knees are bent, scoot your hips a tiny bit over to one side and straighten the other leg, and then take a bent leg across in a twist. Now what's important here is the shoulder you're twisting away from stays on the mat. Don't worry about how far across that leg gets. We need to anchor the shoulder to have a twist. If you want a complete spinal twist, you can turn your head, your gaze toward the hand that you've twisted away from. Slowly come back. Scoot your hips over to the other side. Straighten the leg that you moved away from. And twist a bent leg across to that side of your body, keeping the shoulder that you're twisting away from pinned down to the ground, anchored. Okay, we need to anchor or twist or there won't be a twist. We've opened up the side of the chest cavity that we've moved away from. That's where we send our breath. Come back, and I suggest just give yourself a super gentle shake out here towards the ceiling. We didn't have a chance to do any inversions today, so this can, count as your little inversion for a very little inversion for circulation purposes. Okay, and then allow yourself to come into a comfortable, supported resting pose. Now, if you've had a history of lower back issues, even if your back is fine at the moment, you may want to stay with your knees bent and feet on the floor and just rest your knees against each other. You might want to try that pose anyway. It's called a collapsed bridge pose. The idea is that the legs support each other so the front of the hips don't have to do any work. We can all try that. You don't need to be lying down in a perfectly still corpse pose to relax. It's good to find relaxation in other poses as well. What's important here is that the front of the hips aren't doing any work, as they would be if your knees were not supporting each other. Palms are to the sky. The hands are a little bit away from you to bring some relaxed opening into the shoulder joints. And feel how well supported you are by very broad base center of gravity on your back body. Your feet are wide apart. You have the full width of your pelvis and shoulder blades. Also the middle of your head so that the concave curves can just release to gravity with every exhalation. And allow yourself to experience the movement created by the wave-like motion of the breath. Okay, you don't have to breathe here. The breath is breathing you. This is the pose at the end of the practice where your central nervous system integrates all the information that it needs to reset itself into a relaxation response. This isn't where the magic happens, but this is where the yoga happens. This is where you put yourself back together in a slightly different way than the way that you began here 50 minutes ago. Okay, so that takes as long as it takes. The recommended amount of time is 5 minutes for every half hour of movement practice. So I'm going to talk your way out of this, but since you have the advantage of privacy here, feel free to stay in this pose as long as you need to. Otherwise, roll onto one side. Stay soft and rounded. Push yourself with your arms into a supported sitting position. You can rock around on your sitting bones if you need to. Root down, feel yourself anchored through the sides of your feet and your sitting bones in order to draw energy up along an open, unobstructed spine here, which is really the central highway of your central nervous system. Okay, so just feel that energetic flow right up and out through the crown of your head. Stay here as long as you need to. See you next time. Thanks.